You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 30th of October 2025 on Monocle Radio. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting to you live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Georgina Godwin. Coming up on today's programme, overnight another US strike on so-called narco-terrorists off the coast of Venezuela. Why is the US building up firepower in the region, and what's the end game? Then, Trump's deal with Xi Jinping has worried Ursula von der Leyen.
This is part of wider economic friction between China and the United States, but it has a huge impact on us here in the European Union.
We'll cross to Brussels to find out just how much of an impact that deal on rare earths will have on Europe. And then Fernando Augusto Pacheco is here, and I'm told he has something sexy and velvety for us.
And smooth as well, Georgina. Today for the Global Countdown, I'll preview Monocle Radio's new autumn playlist.
Can't wait. All that right here on The Briefing with me, Georgina Godwin. Donald Trump is on his way back from Asia and is wasting no time flexing American firepower, this time off the coast of Venezuela. Overnight, the US confirmed another strike on what it said was a drug-running vessel in the Eastern Pacific, killing 4 people. It's the latest in a string of attacks. At least 61 people have died since September, all as a result of what Washington says is a war on narco-terrorism. Well, joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Ryan Berg, Director of the Americas Programme at the Centre for Strategic and International Studies. Ryan, thanks for getting up early to be with us. What do we know about this overnight action?
Thanks very much, Georgina, for having me on. This is a series of strikes that you mentioned, which are taking place mostly in the Southern Caribbean, but have now extended into the Pacific theater. And there was a strike in recent days that actually took place in the Pacific theater, but far north of where strikes previously have taken place, quite near to Mexican waters. And so what I would argue, Georgina, is that this is actually a paradigm shift that we're witnessing in real time of what counter-narcotics operations look like. And the Trump administration is very keen, I think, to show that designating criminal organizations as foreign terrorist organizations brings consequences, in this case, lethal consequences. So they are busy, they are actively taking this out of a law enforcement paradigm and moving it into a more military paradigm where the Coast Guard is no longer as active as they might have been in some of these operations. And now the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force is in the lead, and you see the results are far different when different elements of the U.S. military are in the lead.
And is that the strategy, just smashing the drug gangs, or is there something else at stake, for instance, regime change?
Well, I think on the counter-narcotics piece, Georgina, the president and the administration is quite keen on being able to set up what they would call a deterrent or a dissuasive impact. And I think that they may have done that in the short term. The medium and the long term remains to be seen. But I can guarantee that these videos that we've all seen, which are very dramatic, that they are circulating in a lot of WhatsApp and Signal and other types of groups of these criminal organizations where different routes or in fact, maybe no routes are being talked about because the consequences are indeed potentially lethal. So, on the Venezuela piece of this, Georgina, I think that in previous weeks we were safe in saying that this was going to remain a counter-narcotics campaign and that things were probably going to remain in international waters. Last Friday, the president said that he had ordered the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Caribbean. I think that might be one of those moments where we're crossing a Rubicon, Georgina, where we may be getting into, as the president himself has said, consideration of hitting targets within Venezuela. And certainly that type of firepower being brought into the region will set up a kind of decision or a forcing mechanism on a decision because these are rare assets. These are assets that are fought over within the military, and they probably can't be kept in the Southern Caribbean in perpetuity.
So how is this being read in Caracas?
Well, the regime of Nicolás Maduro is taking this as an existential threat. I think we shouldn't mistake that. Since the day that the United States announced the deployment to the Southern Caribbean, and ever since it's been building that deployment weekly, The regime has been taking this as an existential threat. It's been very publicly sort of training its Bolivarian militias. It's been very publicly announcing its military movements, its troop movements, its placement of radars and anti-ship and anti-missile systems around the country. But we shouldn't make any mistake about this. If the United States is keen on removing Maduro from power, it will likely happen. The regime's military has been involved over the years in lots of illicit activity, not just drug trafficking, as the administration asserts, but human trafficking, illegal gold mining, timber, you name it. So this institution, this usually vaunted institution in Venezuela, has been more or less hollowed out in terms of its fighting capability.
How much does the US Congress have to say on this? Is it their decision?
Well, it's a great question. Certainly, by the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Congress has the power to declare war. That's very clear. As of now, when the administration has emphasized that this is a counter-narcotics campaign, they are advancing a set of legal principles that says that the president has the ability to defend the homeland against imminent threats. And Congress plays a role in terms of asking for briefings, asking for information. There is the War Powers Resolution, which the Congress is exercising to express, for some members, their displeasure at these strikes. Attacks on Venezuela, again, they may cross that Rubicon into gray areas in U.S. law, where is that a war or is that an anti-narcotics campaign? But clearly, if there was a full-blown type of conflict, that power rests only with the Congress, not with the president.
And if it is Trump's personal initiative, and we know he generally does seem to act out of self-interest, what's the gain to him? Does he, and hear me out here, I know it sounds wild, but does he want to involve the US in a war in order to bring in emergency powers, which would then, of course, suspend elections?
No, I don't think that's at all in the cards. I think that's a bit too extravagant, frankly. I think that the United States is convinced that Venezuela is a criminal regime masquerading as a government, and that it presents a threat to the U.S. homeland. I think there are plenty of officials in the current administration who believe that, and are acting on that.
And just looking at the region, I wonder what the view is from Bogota. I mean, could this push Colombia and Venezuela closer together?
Well, certainly that has been the argument of Colombia's leftist president, Gustavo Petro. However, the Colombian armed forces have spent decades fighting guerrilla groups, both in Colombia and guerrilla groups that operate out of Venezuela. And so they are not keen at all to unite forces with the Venezuelan armed forces and somehow repel some kind of attack. I think they as an institution, would much rather sit back and not get involved in this kind of thing. So I think what we're seeing out of Bogota is more rhetoric and positioning of Petro as part of this cause against potential strikes on the Maduro regime than an actual plan.
And just finally, as you say, the USS Gerald Ford carrier group is there, and it can't be kept there for a long time. It's needed in other places. So if this is the paradigm shift that you expressed, what is the timeline here? Are we going to see things moving pretty fast now?
Well, it's a great question, Georgina. The carrier strike group is on its way, but it's going to take about 7 to 10 days to cross the Atlantic. It was at port in Croatia. And we have to remember it's hurricane season in the Caribbean. So right now you've got Melissa rolling through the region. It's going to take a while for the carrier strike group to get there. So I think, and this week is all about Asia, as we know, for the president. So it's going to be a little bit of time before that clock starts ticking. But once it starts ticking, Georgina, I estimate that this is about a 3-week to 1 month deployment where you have a critical set of decisions that need to be made. Because as I said, the U.S. only has 11 of these. There are only 3 carriers usually deployed at any one point in time. The competition for these things is very intense, and I imagine it can only stay in theater for so long.
Ryan, thank you very much indeed. That was Ryan Berg, Director of the Americas Programme at the Centre for Strategic and International Studies. Now, here's Monica Lillis with the day's other news headlines.
Thanks, Georgina. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping have held their first in-person talks in years in South Korea, agreeing to reduce US tariffs on Chinese goods and ease curbs on key exports, such as rare earths. The meeting signals a pause in the trade war, though big tensions on technology and security remain. Protesters in Tanzania have returned to the streets for a second day, following violent clashes between the police and protesters during yesterday's election day. Demonstrations broke out in the nation's capital, Dar es Salaam, and several other major cities over the exclusion of incumbent President Hassan's two biggest challengers from the presidential race. 5 more suspects have been detained over their involvement in the Louvre heist, according to Paris's public prosecutor. The arrests were carried out in the 16th district of the French capital yesterday evening. Local authorities say the gang involved could be bigger than those who physically stole the jewels. And luxury giant LVMH is planning to deepen its partnership with UNESCO to scale global projects linking business and biodiversity. As part of a new phase, the Tiffany & Co Foundation will support the development of sustainable management plans for marine areas across the globe. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Georgina.
Thanks, Monica. Now, the rare earth deal struck between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump has left Europe watching from the sidelines again. Brussels says it won't repeat the Russia energy mistake with China and critical minerals, but talk is cheap and lithium isn't. Joining us from Brussels is Rebecca Christie, Senior Fellow at Bruegel and host of the Sound of Economics podcast. Rebecca, many thanks for taking the time to appear on the briefing. How much does the Washington-Beijing deal raise the stakes for Europe as it tries to rethink its China strategy?
The deal between Washington and Beijing is good in the sense that it backs away from a major trade war. It backs away from major confrontations. This does raise, as you point out, a lot of questions about the long-term balance of power between the three major geopolitical entities, but still the absence of an outright open hostility-driven conflict is good for Europe.
Europe says it wants to de-risk, not decouple. In practice, how dependent is the EU on China for rare earths and other critical minerals?
It depends on who you ask, and it depends on which ones you're talking about. Some people would say that critical raw materials are neither critical nor raw because they tend to be processed, and that the issue is not finding them, it's finding the people who can convert them into the usable things, which is often in China. It also depends on which ones, again, I think cobalt is one of the ones that is the most dependent with the current trade ties, but it's also not particularly rare. So a lot of this is variable depending on where you're standing from. This means there's a lot of room for the EU to make a plan without antagonizing China. Again, open hostile conflict is the worst outcome here.
Right. Well, talking of a plan, I mean, von der Leyen is hinting at a repower style push on minerals. What was repower and what would this iteration of it look like?
Repower EU was an attempt to use more of the pandemic recovery funds that were driven by common borrowing. It became clear as the Next Generation EU program got underway that not all of the authorized funds that the EU could borrow jointly would be taken up by member states. So the idea was, what if we use some of this to help accelerate the energy transition and get people better power grids and more renewables? So a repower style program could mean using EU borrowing. It could mean just looking at some way to leverage the EU budget, potentially with starter money for different member states. I haven't seen any details, so I can't tell you exactly how it would work, but that seems to be the general frame.
I mean, is there an appetite in Brussels to spend and move at scale?
Really hard, because the member states don't like the idea of borrowing a lot at the EU level. They don't have any room in their own budgets. And when the EU does borrow, they can't always get the money out the door. There aren't that many shovel-ready, well-governed projects ready to go. So they've got issues at all the stages of the pipeline.
Mining and processing inside Europe, within Europe, is controversial. I mean, could the EU even do this without running into a wall of both local opposition and regulation and red tape?
Depends on what it is, and it depends on where it is, and it depends on how it needs to be processed.
Yes. Well, if Europe can't then bank on China or indeed fully trust the US, who are the realistic alternative partners?
The EU can certainly look at continuing its work with Latin America, with Australia, and it can also look at ways to make better use of the resources it has by taking out waste from the supply chain, by recycling more. There are a lot of options. They do take time and they do take investment.
And do you think this plan will go ahead?
Everything is in flux in Brussels right now. We're at the beginning of a 7-year budget process. We have leaders who have yet to agree on how to support Ukraine. I'm not going to say it won't, but it's too soon to say how it will.
Rebecca, thank you very much indeed. That's Rebecca Christie there, Senior Fellow at Bruegel in Brussels. Thank you very much indeed. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. You're back with The Briefing on Monocle Radio. To Tokyo now, where Japan's biggest automotive industry event, the Japan Mobility Show, is underway this week at the capital's International Exhibition Centre. It features Japan's leading car brands, but also China's BYD and other competitors, all showcasing their latest technologies and premiering new vehicles. Monocle's Ryuma Takahashi was on site and brings us the highlights.
This year has been full of big stories for the automotive industry, especially in Japan, from the Trump tariffs to the weak yen. But here at Japan Mobility Show, automakers are fighting back with new models and new ideas as if to drown out all the negative news. Toyota showed a new Corolla Concept, and its luxury Century brand, Century Coupe. At the press briefing, Toyota's chairperson Akio Toyoda spoke with real passion about automaking.
Today, more than 5 decades after the birth of that first century, where does Japan find itself? The Japan as #1 era is behind us, and we're now in what has come to be known as the lost 30 years. Japan as a nation seems to have lost some of its energy and dynamism. I believe, now more than ever, we need the Century.
Toyota also drew attention with the new Land Cruiser FJ. Designers Liu Yi and Yoshito Watanabe from Toyota told us more about their ideas behind the design of the Land Cruiser FJ.
General inspiration for exterior and interior is from the tires. It's a cube and it chopped from each side, and some of the corner is rounded. Each side is super straight.
We didn't really think of come up with some more of like a flashy functionality, and then of course for fully developed countries always seek for the new features, but we also have to think about those who live in that like a global south. They need more reliability.
But the biggest spotlight this year is on electric vehicles. Honda gave the world premiere of the Honda Zero Alpha, a new SUV from the next generation EV line, Honda Zero Series. Here's Honda CEO Toshihiro Mibe speaking at the press briefing.
Striving to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, Honda is continuing to develop of electrification technology, including for EV and hybrid vehicles. Honda Series is our next generation EV series that we will offer by going back to our starting point of Honda with a zero-based approach. With a unique development approach of thin, light and wide, Honda Zero Series creates a complete new value for our customers.
And Yuji Terui, who designed the exterior of the Honda Zero SUV, explained its unique design.
We can't lose the sense of reliability expected from an SUV. However, the Zero Series concept seeks a design that is sleek, dynamic and distinctive. In addition, the greatest feature of this vehicle is its exterior design, which successfully balanced that with an open, spacious interior offering excellent visibility and usability.
Another major highlight is BYD, a Chinese EV maker that's expanding in Japan. The company announced the BYD Rakko, a new K-Class EV made for the Japanese market. At their press briefing, which drew the attention of the large crowd of journalists, BYD Japan CEO Liu Shuilian spoke with great energy about the Japanese market.
When you go to rural areas of Japan, places like Nagano, Tottori, Shimane or Saga, you'll see that K-cars are truly part of the local scenery. So I thought, why not offer the same familiar K-cars, but as electric vehicles? We are fully committed to Japan. BYD, thank you very much.
Hirohide Tagawa, who led the development of the BYD Rakko and previously led K-car development at Nissan, told me about BYD's entry into Japan's K-car market.
Compared to markets like China with 30 million units and North America with about 15 million, Japan's market may seem small. But when viewed on a national scale, a 4 million unit market is actually quite large compared to the other countries. Since Japan is known for its very strict standards when it comes to quality, earning higher valuations here will, in a sense, enhance the overall reputation of the BYD brand. That's why we're focusing on entering the Japanese market.
The EV movement is also reaching motorcycles. Suzuki revived its popular motorbike, Van Van, this time as an EV bike, E-Van Van. The E-Van Van development team at Suzuki told me what makes an EV bike special.
So obviously the gasoline motorcycles and EV motorcycles are two very different things. EV motorcycles don't have vibrations or engine sound, but because it doesn't make sound, you can hear a lot of your surroundings when you ride the motorcycle. So you can enjoy riding through this silence like a wind.
There are many more announcements from other brands that we couldn't cover today, so check out the Japan Mobility Show to see all exciting new vehicles on display. For Monocle in Tokyo, I'm Ryuma Takahashi.
Many thanks to Ryuma there. The Japan Mobility Show continues in Tokyo until the 9th of November. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. Now, the moment I've been waiting for, it's when Fernando slides in to bring some sizzle to the show. Our senior correspondent is here with his great music selection, The Global Countdown.
It's all about sizzling this time, Gigi, because it's a special one. Today we're looking at the new autumn playlist, which you will be introducing in the music hours as well. Of course, I've added about 25 to 30 tracks, but I'm giving you here the best of the best.
Excellent. What are we starting with?
We're starting at number 5 with Charlotte Gainsbourg with Blurry Moon. I'm a big fan of the singer and actress, and she hasn't been doing new music for years. But now she's back, and this is very sultry.
Under my blurry
I told you at the beginning of the show, it's going to be very velvety, very sexy, And in the video for the song, she's driving a car in Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles. So that's the kind of the vibe I'm aiming for here. Well, not me, Charlotte.
No, but curating it in this way, it's how you want people to feel, really, when they're listening to the music.
Exactly. And number 4, something quite fun. Our very own Tom Webb, he interviewed her last week. So you can listen to the interview with Ellie X on the Monocle Weekly page on our website. I've met her because I interviewed her 2 years ago on Zoom. And so it was great meeting her in person. She was super friendly. Ellie X has a new album out called Happiness Is Going to Get You. And this song, her songs can be, a bit sharp, talking about her traumas. But this one has an optimistic touch because it is about getting over your traumas. Let's have a listen. Ellie X with Reunite.
And I'm not mad anymore. In fact, now I'm doing fine. I've gotten wiser with age. Will you let me back into your life? I know it wasn't your fault, and though it might have been mine, we were just doing our best. Maybe you and me can reunite.
Okay, we got to be honest here, Gigi. It does remind us of another song as well, right?
I just can't think what it is.
You know what? I can't think. Exactly.
Can you hear me? That's it.
Oh my God. Okay, great. We're doing this live, guys. You're very good, Gigi. But it's a lovely song, and it's kind of almost like a lullaby kind of taste to Ellie X.
I think it was it Alison Moyet? I think it was.
From the 80s, exactly. Yazoo vibes as well. Okay, we got it. This is live. That's what I like. What I like.
Anyway, on we go.
Moving along to number 3, of course, I like to add older tracks to the playlist as well. And this one is close to my heart. It's from Brazil, 1993. And I remember this song was the theme song of a soap opera called Mulheres de Areia, which was set in a small town in the state of Bahia in Brazil. So again, it's beautiful, and it is about a sexy goddess of the sea. This is Pepeu Gomes with Sexy Iemanjá, the name of the goddess. It's so, even though it's an autumn playlist, I think we still should be sunny.
That sounds, you can see the sexy goddess with long wavy mermaid hair and an orchid tucked behind her ear, can't you?
That's exactly what I can imagine. Even the lyrics, I'll love you so much. Between us, only sex and God.
Ah, lovely.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
Now, of course, a woman who was incredibly sexy in her time, in the 50s, she was probably at the peak of her fame. An amazing woman. I'll never forget her song about where women having male secretaries in Turkey. It was a great song.
It's fantastic.
Called Ishkadar. We are talking, of course, of Eartha Kitt.
And she's also a gay icon because, so basically she had a hit in the 80s as well, where she went a little bit dance in the 80s with the song Where Is My Man? But then I picked a song that was remixed this year by Italian DJ Joe T. Vanelli. I think he brought, oh my God, an even smokier side to that song if you can actually achieve it. So let's have a listen. Joe T. Vanelli with the wonderful Eartha Kitt, Where's My Man? The 2025 remix.
To my fingers to the bone, where is my man? Where is my baby? He can't be far. Look for an Oscar, a big cigar. Tell him to find me, send his car.
She was talking about big cigars there, chic, sexy, velvety smoke. I don't know.
Eartha Kitt. I used to have a cat called Eartha Kitten, obviously, and another one called Yusuf Islam because it was Cat Stevens.
I can't believe that. How wonderful. That's the best anecdote of the Global Countdown this time.
Okay, what is that? Number 1.
And number 1, a little bit of a sunset disco with some hazy guitars for you. It is from Denmark. It is Santino Surfers Underwater Disco. It's a vibe I want for everyone this autumn, A little bit of sultry, a little bit of Eartha Kitt, a little bit of Danish disco. Santino Surfers is from Denmark. Maybe it didn't sound like one, but, it was.
I'm just trying to imagine what an underwater disco would look like.
I think it'd be super fun.
You'd be quite slow moving.
They're hazy. Exactly like this track. Exactly like this. We need a drink, Georgina, We do need a drink right now.
Okay, well, listen, it's the end of the show. We can arrange that. Exactly. We can arrange it almost imminently. I'm glaring at the producer here, hoping he gets the message. We've been working very hard. He's giving us a thumbs up. Fernando, I think that's a lunchtime G&T waiting for us. Fernando Augusto Pacheco, thank you very much. And that is all for this edition of The Briefing, which was produced by Chris Chermak, also known as our waiter. Our researcher was Joanna Mosa and our studio manager was Elliot Greenfield. The Briefing is back tomorrow at the same time. I'm Georgina Godwin. Goodbye and thanks for listening.